In the Quran, there are these letters of the alphabet in the beginning of some chapters that are written and read individually, like acronyms, as in ALM, or since the Quran is in Arabic, as Aleph Lam Mem. Therefore, they are called disjointed letters in English or Huroof al-Muqatta'ah in Arabic. But the thing is, they have remained a mystery since their revelation, as nobody knows what they mean. Not that scholars didn't try to figure them out. Some said they were abbreviations. Some conjectured they were used for their numerological values, as in Gematria or Abjad. But none of these claims have stood the test of time or academic scrutiny. In this video, I'm going to present my research on the topic. But for that, you need to understand how the alphabet came about. Whether it is the English alphabet or the Arabic alphabet, both trace their roots back to over 4,000-year-old Egyptian hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs were these pictographs or shapes of real-world objects where each shape represented a word. For instance, this was the hieroglyph of the word for an Egyptian cow or an ox. Similarly, this was the pictograph for the word for a home or a house. So what happened is, as time passed by, the number of these pictographs increased to around 1,000 because more and more words needed to be represented in writing. With so many symbols needing to be remembered, it became a daunting task. So what happened was that instead of using different symbols for different words, people started using a few symbols to merely represent constituent sounds, taking the starting sounds of the words they represented as the sound of that symbol. So say, time could be represented by its own hieroglyph, or these hieroglyphs combined to represent T, I, and M sounds. This brought down the symbols needed to be remembered from around 1,000 to only around 30, and thus the modern alphabet was born. These pictographs were then taken by the Canaanites from Egypt via the Sinai Peninsula to Canaan, present-day Israel and Palestine. That is why sometimes they are called Proto-Sinaitic and at other times Paleo-Hebrew, which then were adopted by the Phoenicians. Anyhow, I'm not going to bore you with technobabble. What you need to understand is that, for instance, the symbol of the ox's head, which represented the word Aleph, which meant and pointed to an ox, was merely designated to represent its opening sound, that is A. Similarly, the house symbol, Beth for Ba sound, and so on and so forth. Thus, these were called alphabet. So while these alphabets retained their history and the full word each of them stood for, their usage was simply restricted to sounds and phonetics in the modern alphabet. This history slowly lost its need and utility and was thus gradually relegated to legends. But when modern excavations and explorations started uncovering these pictographs everywhere in Egypt and the Middle East, where sometimes these pictographs were used as sounds and sometimes as full words, their history was rediscovered and inscribed in dictionaries, particularly of Hebrew and Arabic. Now let's come back to these disjointed alphabet of the Holy Quran. I hope you already know by now where I'm going with this. So what if these Quranic acronyms were used in that ancient way, where each alphabet is actually a word, the very word and real-life object it was coined to represent? This idea was first propounded by an Islamic scholar by the name of Hamiduddin Farahi from the subcontinent, present-day Pakistan and India, in the early 20th century. But his theory, merely bare bones enough to interpret single alphabet, whereas most of the disjointed alphabets in the Quran occur in combinations, only resulted in solving one of the 29 occurrences of these alphabet in the Holy Quran. Hence, what I have done is expand and improve upon his skeletal theory to find out meanings and purpose of all these disjointed alphabets in an academically sound and consistent manner. What I found is that indeed each of these alphabets are used in their original meanings as objects they were modeled after from their inception. So K in English, which is Kaf in Arabic, represents a hand, and M or Meme represents water, and N or Noon represents a fish. And this object representing the alphabet is then applied to an incident, object, or person discussed in the chapter. So for instance, N or Noon represents Prophet Jonah, whose swallowing by a big fish or a whale is discussed in the chapter. But this is only part of the solution, because seldom do these disjointed alphabets occur singularly. In 26 out of the 29 times they are used in the Quran, they are actually used in a combination, like ALM, ALR, HM, TSM, KHYAS, etc. And even when they are used alone, the mere 3 times, there seemed to be something missing to really make sense out of their usage. So I found that not only do these alphabets represent the objects they were modeled after and hinted to in the respective chapters, each alphabet in the combination is then employed to symbolize an event or sense in Abrahamic religious history, or in other words, Jewish and Christian histories that may or may not be found in the Quran, but rather in the Bible or Jewish and Christian legends. And finally, that sometimes multiple alphabets within a combination combine to represent a compound object, either because that is how it was used in ancient Canaan, Sinai, and Arabia, or because the incident or object from Abrahamic religious history could only be pointed to with multiple alphabets. You can find the first half of my research paper on the topic at this link, which contains these details about the usage and peculiarities and much, much more, that ends with revealing the ancient meanings of all disjointed alphabets individually. And from the next video onwards, I'll explain what is meant by each combination of the disjointed alphabets in the Quran. I'm making this video because I'm about to kick off with the commentary of the entire Quran, especially with non-Muslims in mind. So I wanted to dispense with the issue of disjointed alphabets separately so that the commentary can go by smoothly. Just for those interested, I have already designed an Introduction to Quran for Non-Muslims course that you can take before starting with my commentary. That will help you a lot by introducing some basic concepts about how to approach the Quran with particular focus on Jewish and Christian viewers, where I tell you how and where it is similar to the Bible and where different, so that the learning curve remains very smooth. You can find all links in the description below. Subscribe here and on Patreon if you don't want to miss anything. Let's meet in the next video with the solution to the first disjointed alphabet of the Holy Quran.